Hello, hello, hello. I am making a video and I'm waiting for Paul to get ready. We're at this house right now and let's put it this way, we're at the 1900 house, something like. When was this house built? No, it was built in 1930. Okay. The 1930 house, I'll call it. The other one is the 1983 house. And we're going today to the 1983 house, the big one, with the big garden. And we always have to make sure the cat is in the front yard here, because we don't want to leave the cat unknowingly in the house. So we have to make sure the cat is outside. It's very important to check on those things, okay? You don't want to accidentally lock an animal into your house when you're going away for a while or something. Even for a day, you don't want to let an animal wait in your house and get thirsty and hungry and lonely and despaired and frightened. So I know about all of these horror stories because of my animal rights activism, and those horror stories, they have really caused me some nervous breakdowns already. So the cat is there peacefully lying down next to the tree. That's very nice. We gave her food. She has water in the backyard. She can get under the house and into the backyard. So she likes it here. This tree there is her home. And she makes nests. Paul leaves extra brush there, extra vegetation. When he mows the lawn, he leaves an extra vegetation area where the weeds grow up and where the cat can feel safe and make a nest in there. So that's really nice. And sometimes an orange cat, male orange cat, comes to visit her. And that's wonderful. So we think the cat had been left behind when people were moving away. And I think that's absolutely callous and cruel. So my message to those people who are foreclosed or who are kicked out of an apartment or house, my message to them is, please bring your animals with you, all of your animals. Okay? And if you cannot bring your animals with you because you don't have space or you're going to be traveling, then bring your animals to other people who can take care of those animals. And if you don't have anyone to take care of the animals, bring your animals to the animal shelters. Okay? You can do that. You can find out where the next local animal shelter is, and you can bring your animals there. And they won't even ask any questions. They just want to help the animals. Okay, so all you have to say is you cannot take care of the animal for some whatever. You don't even need to say why. Just bring the animal there, and so that the animal doesn't have to starve or thirst to death or suffer in any way or be lonely and frightened. So that's very, very important. So I watched the latest Sam Vaknin video on the anti-vaxxers. I'm an anti-vaxxer myself, but I think I'm an anti-vaxxer for quite different reasons than probably, I don't know, than other people. I don't know how many people are conspiracy based. I've seen many in the chat room, so many think that they're believing some kind of Christian conspiracy theory that where they think that the Illuminati wants to somehow cut down on human population worldwide. And that's just completely backwards. Yeah, that's a complete backwards thing. And that's something that actually the corporate agenda would put out there to the public in order to lead them astray. That's what they do. They like to lead people astray. They like to lead people into complete confusion and misunderstanding of how things are, because obviously the corporate agenda doesn't want people to ask any questions. They don't want people to find out what the actual situation is with the corruption. They don't want people to know who is corrupt and the motives that they have with that corruption and what they do to manipulate the public. They don't want people to know that, any of these things, obviously. So they put out false propaganda through radio, talk show hosts, and this is happening massively. I don't know if the radio talk show hosts themselves believe this conspiracy theory, the Christian type conspiracy theory, or whether they don't care, they just want to take the money from the corporate agenda. But I'm making video. But either way, they are part of that corruption if they put out this false propaganda. And they're part of the problem with human society. They're part of making the world more miserable, causing more suffering, and so on. So it's very important for me to say this. So Sam Vaknin brought up some points that in his latest video that are obviously from the psychological point of view, the psychology part of that video is very true, and obviously there are lots of groups and conspiracy believers, theorists who believe this false propaganda from the corporate agenda. And a lot of people then jump on that, and maybe, a lot of people might think they found like-minded people, they found a group to latch onto that gives them meaning in life. I've seen people like this. I've talked to people like this. I had a really good friend, a best friend, woman friend who was going in that direction, and also quite schizoid. So these people, that they might feel like they know more than others, and once they are latching onto this and they think now that gives them a sense of grandiosity, and the list goes on. All of these mechanisms, they do tie into this. I totally agree. And I kind of understand that Sam Vaknin gets mad sometimes about stupidity, and I don't blame him for this. But, here is where I don't agree with what he said about the anti-vaxxers, or, being against the vaccines for the viruses. He is not paying attention to what's actually happening out there. There is actually something happening with the corporate agenda. And I don't get this from any radio talk show host, okay? I get this because of my activism, because I pay very close attention to these things. When I hear about news, I research this thoroughly, before I just believe something blindly. And I connect the dots. I look at the entire picture as much as I possibly can. As much as I can look at it from a sky perspective. And see the whole picture of it, the big picture of this. I see there are the different conspiracy groups. This is what they believe. Then I question, where does this belief come from? Why is this put into the world? Follow the money trail, and why? And what's going on with the medical industry? What's going on with the pharmaceutical industry? Okay, so this is not some kind of like, we're always against big pharma or something, or they are just gonna try to ruin us, or they are, and then the Christians, they always think they want to make people unfertile and blah blah blah, all of this. No. There's only one thing that's happening. One big, huge mechanism that's happening, and that is greed. Okay, greed. Okay, just remember greed. Okay, that's what's happening with seems like with a lot or most people, I would say. And particularly with those that elbow themselves into CEO levels, political levels, and so on. Always, those are the ones that are always pushing in with vested interests. And during the Barack Obama administration, it was ridden with vested interest. People need to know, it's just stop being biased. Look at the facts. Look at the whole picture of it. Okay? Donald Trump was weeding this all out. He was cleaning the house with this. He was cleaning the house from all of these corrupt people. He fired many. Yeah, you're fired. So he fired many, and it was good, and it was necessary. Okay, and he got under fire for firing. Of course, from the opposition. From anyone who is on the take. From the corporate agenda, of course. On the corporate agenda, that goes so far. I mean, it goes very far. They don't shy away from anything. They will totally exploit people's fear of being labeled racist and all of these things. They exploit this to the fullest extent. They brought this on with the Black Lives Matter, with the arsonists, with the riots with total destruction of people's properties, they burned people's houses down. An innocent little boy died with his puppy on his lap. They burned there together. Condor babies in their nests burned down because of Black Lives Matter. I have to mention all of these things because I don't think people are aware. Okay. Who knows who pounded that nail into our tire? Maybe it was someone like this. We've seen those people out there. There was a pimp with a hooker out there. Okay. And I didn't trust them at all. Not at all. So, and they were not quite right in the head. The hooker is completely schizoid. She needs to get help. She needs to go into a sanatorium and not be sent out there in a bra to get people to give her money and stuff like this. I mean, and I can't say where it was, but the name of the town, let me paraphrase this. The name of the town sounds like very innocent and very happy-go-lucky in that direction, okay? And that was not happy-go-lucky whatsoever. And we can't camp there anymore, okay? So that's for sure. So corruption, is just... And those who are corrupt, they don't care about making the world better. Quite the opposite. They want people to be down and out. That gives them pawns that are willing to work for very little money, And then they give them a narrative. You are a victim. You're stepped on by this or that group. You better retaliate. And then they willingly do the work for the corporate agenda. Okay, that's what's happening. They want this division because with this division they can manipulate people better. It's as simple as that. Okay, it's all from the top Illuminati eye of the pyramid. Okay, those are psychopaths. Those are real sociopaths. Okay, psychopaths are really those that have no frontal cortical judgment. Those are sociopaths. They have frontal, prefrontal, cortical judgment and planning ahead. But they're sociopaths. They have, just like the psychopaths, they have absolutely no compassion. They don't see others as valid, as valuable. They only see their own advantage, of course, They have depersonalized other people. They have made them into pawns, slaves, and market perpetuation slaves, They are basically they view most people as market slaves that are dumb, they don't ask the right questions, and they buy their products. Okay? And they don't want to cut down on the population, because if they cut down on the population, that would mean less customers. The corporate agenda wants the population to be high. So if the virus cuts down on the population, that is actually something that they're not necessarily too thrilled about, because it cuts down on customers, of course. It changes the entire situation, social structure and everything. And the viruses, they will keep coming, and they will keep on killing people. And it is infinitely sad, all of this. From a much higher perspective, and there was someone in the Starbase chat room who I saw who was seeing it from the much higher perspective, apparently, before I got in the chat room last night. And because they were putting him under fire for that. They were all mad at him for that. That's not his fault that we have this pandemic, of course. He just made a general statement that came from a much higher perspective, saying that, that this is one way of cutting down on overpopulation. That's just an observation, basically. It's not some kind of judgment or some kind of ill-willed leverage holding destructive handling of things. Okay, he's not the one in charge of this, of course. He just made an observation, and that when people say something like this, highly politically incorrect, they get under fire, of course. We have to be prepared. Most people are very religious, and they put the human on the pedestal. The human, for most people, the human can't do anything wrong. That's wrong. That is a wrong perception. Okay, that's a belief that comes from radio talk show hosts and from Christian ministers. So we need to pay more attention to the people around you. Question them more. Don't depersonalize them automatically. Don't go the other extreme. Just watch out for people, What are they saying? Is this true? Find out. As Sam Vaknin himself said, you know, before you make any judgment or come to conclusions, do your research, you know, really do a lot of research. Most people don't want to do that. They don't want to do this intellectual legwork, you know, this honest researching on things. They want to be biased, and they want to be just believing what their favorite talk show host says, because their egos have already identified with that group, and then that group can't do anything wrong. That's very dangerous. That's how Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, Kim Jong-un, that's how dangerous dictators come into power, okay, throughout history, with this kind of mind state. We need to weigh things out. We need to look at everything, you know. For example, Paul has plus and minus. Okay. So, let me say the plus first. He changed the tire on this van in a very short time, out there in this happy-go-lucky area. Okay. And we were very lucky because the people that were working on the tire shop, they were all gone out of town because they were helping the firefighters and with the fire out there. So we had this entire shaded car shop canopy place for ourselves, and the sun was blasting. So we parked the van under that shade, and he was able to fix the tire. I assisted as good as I could, and he changed the tire. He put the spare tire on and took the damaged tire off in a very short time. I was very, very impressed. Okay, so that made the vacation more pleasant, and the drive back was kind of scary because there were a lot of large trucks, and some of them looked like psychopaths, and I said to him, don't look at them. If you look at them, you look into their faces, they snap, okay? If they are psychopaths, they can snap and they can go into road rage. And you don't want to take it on with one of these huge semi-trucks. Okay, it's not a good idea, you know, when we're in the city van here, okay? And there was one guy already who was taking up both lanes, you know, and these semi-trucks taking up both lanes for a very, very long time. It would be good to actually report these people for doing this. Those semi-trucks are not supposed to pass by another semi-truck. Then they block the whole traffic. And I understand why he's angry, but I told him, don't look in their faces. Never, ever. And he said he's never going to look in their faces again. So this is very good, because that scares me really, really badly. Once they get into this energetic fist fight, you know, then...
He wouldn't let us pass him. When we tried to pass him, he sped up.
Exactly, yeah. No, they can hear you. So, yeah. That is what it is, and it's really scary. And we have to pay attention to our own emotions then, and we have to do what Eckhart Tolle, and he's against what Eckhart Tolle says, but he should listen to Eckhart Tolle in the sense that we need to look at it from the sky perspective, and we need to understand where they are coming from. Instead of just brushing them all off and saying they're just no damn good, that doesn't move the world in the right direction. So obviously they're coming from a lot of pain, they're coming from suffering. Genetic plays into it, but the genetics of psychopathy does not come out into action unless the person has been battered during childhood, and they all have, guaranteed. Okay, so doesn't mean that everyone who has been battered is going to become a psychopath. Obviously, you know, some people don't. Some people become schizophrenic. They hurt themselves. they go into deep depression, they suffer silently on their own, they never let it out on others. So the genetics plays into it, for sure, okay? That needs to be said. So what I want to say with this video is that, we don't have to condemn people. We don't have to say, oh, just because he is behaving wrong with this situation, then I should put him in the condemnation drawer or file or something and close the door and put the label on no damn good, which is what most people do, including Paul. Okay? That doesn't move us forward at all. That's what I'm trying to say with my videos. So everyone has their suffering, their pain, their story, of course. A lot of people will use that as an excuse. And they will say, oh, I was beaten, so that's why I did this. No, that's not an excuse for violence. Okay. But I see from the Sky perspective that they have been all battered. And that's the truth. Okay. And we need to acknowledge that. But they also have the genetic disposition that when they're growing up as children being battered, that this genetic disposition switches on and the psychopathic characteristics come out as a form of psychological defense mechanism. Okay. Arjanov talks about this. Okay. Sam Vaknin talks about this. So I want to look at the whole person. Okay. I absolutely love Sam Vaknin. I binge watch his videos. He's very funny, he has a lot of humor. But I am definitely not in agreement with him on everything that he says, and we need to be critical. We need to not say, oh, just because he's funny and I binge watch his videos doesn't mean I have to now agree with everything that he says. We need to be critical thinkers. I think this is extremely important. If everyone was more critically thinking and more questioning things without condemning someone, okay, but saying he's right on this, but he's wrong on this. He's right on this, he's wrong on that, and let me inspect this further and let me see if this is true what she or he said. Okay. So then we will make progress. Then we will move forward. I think this is very, very extremely important. My view on it, I've already talked about it many times. The pharma industry is a huge mafia type of conglomeration. Okay? And what's going on there is absolutely factual. What's going on there is not a theory. And so my criticism to Sam is, don't condemn people into the mentally ill drawer because they are critical of the pharmaceutical industry. Okay, it's quite the opposite. If you're critical of the pharmaceutical industry for the right reasons, not for some Christian stuff, not for some backwards, reversed kind of propaganda. If you see the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry for what it really is, okay, they want to make money, okay, so they may, I'm not saying they have, but there was someone in the chat room when the pandemic first broke out in the beginning of 2020, someone came into the chat room and talked just only to me for some reason and said, I see that you're looking into this and I have some insider information. And then he left, never came back. And he said that the virus was created in the lab, actually in China. And I thought for a while it may have been created in the bioweapon laboratory in New Mexico, but it could have just as well been anywhere. The corporate agenda doesn't have any specific place where they would create something like this. It doesn't matter where it's created, it will travel around the globe in a very fast, quick time. Okay, so, and it did. And what horror it has caused. And so I think they deliberately created those violence. They have been working on them for many, many, many years. I think they have worked on those kind of things, bioweapons kind of stuff, for 100 years, at least. And then with new technology and new information, it just became more and more covert and more disguisable and more difficult to figure out where something like this started, easier to conceal, easier to work with for them in laboratories. Who knows how many animals had to suffer for this. Okay. It's horrific. Already came out to the surface that Fauci himself has been involved with very cruel research on laboratory dogs. Horrific. What an atrocity that is. I personally believe those people need to be head-bolted who do cruel tests on animals. That's my personal viewpoint on it. Okay. And I'm not going to be the executioner, because I don't want drama, and I don't want to be murdered. If I'm murdered, I can't do any more activism. I have to be careful with how I work, but I do reserve myself the right to freedom of speech and net neutrality. Absolutely. And we all should stand up for our freedom of speech and for our right to say what we have to say, what we want to say, okay, without causing alarm, without causing, there are two different things. Freedom of speech on one hand, you say your opinions, and deliberately causing people to go into a shock state or into alarm, into fear. That's what the corporate propaganda does. They're actually causing. They're screaming fire, basically, to make people terrified, to make people crazy. They're actually the ones that are doing this when they hire market psychologists, and talk show hosts, radio hosts to propagate propaganda that scares people and makes people crazy and psychotic. Okay. They're the ones breaking the law, not someone who is just reporting about the situation in a sky perspective way. So you report on something without trying to create drama or panic. Okay. There are these two different ways of reporting, obviously. One is propaganda based and the other one is neutral and clear-minded, observing the situation, critical thinking, asking questions, raising questions. Okay. That's how I write my articles. That's how I always try to make my videos. Okay. That's how I always write in comments. That's how I interact with people. I'm raising questions. I want to bring awareness to the world. I want people to ask more questions, even if these questions may undermine your ego and your standing of this or that group or religion or whatever. Yeah. Go with the truth. Yeah. Asking questions is always truthful. Real science is asking real questions. Okay. And that's having the truth on your side. If you ask a question, you haven't made any conclusive statements yet, but you're asking questions, and that's very important to do, okay? Because then you can dig further into the actual situation that's going on, the actual facts out there, the reality, the truth that's out there, and that's important. Okay, so before we leave here, I want to say the pharma industry is part of the corporate agenda. The corporate agenda is all of these industries that do corrupt hand washing with each other. They're all serving each other. Their only goal is to make more money. Okay. And if they can push a mandatory vaccine on people, that makes them more money. Even on our tax money that most people are paying. Okay. This is very important information. I want people to become aware about this. Okay? You guys take care. Bye-bye.